it's really important to know the difference between the different classifications levels because they make news, right? Like, if you remember when Trump was in office circa 2018, he kind of made a big stink. He went to war against any senior retired official who tried to then take their top secret SCI clearance into the private sector. You remember when he did that?
Who was it that did this?
Trump.
Oh yeah, okay.
So he was basically saying, hey, if you retire from federal service, intelligence agency or otherwise, you lose your clearance.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
it makes fucking sense.
Yeah, it does,
because you don't have a need to know you're retired.
Yep.
But because the actual formal policy is that you keep your clearance until 2 years after you no longer have access to information.
Yeah.
That was being used by senior intelligence officials to move into the private sector and then basically sell to the private sector their private contacts, their network of contacts inside of the intelligence organizations, right? So now Raytheon hires a retired CIA officer who continues to carry their CIA TS-SCI full scope polygraph clearance. That person now sits at Raytheon, but calls up their buddies at FBI and calls up their buddy at NSA so that Raytheon can close a $5 million annual contract covering whatever when it's Raytheon. So it's more like $50 million, right?
Yeah.
That's an abuse of the system.
Of course.
Trump saw that. Trump called that out. Trump tried to make a change. And there was a ton of resistance.
Of course, because that's how it's been for a long time. And, people, that's another thing I guess we could talk about is how people kind of transition from the government world into the private sector. And then a lot of times they come back, right? They'll make their money.
They can't make it.
Yeah, they'll make their money and then they'll get the fuck out and then they'll come back if they want. Like Cheeto, for example, is a perfect example of this. This director of the Secret Service you guys saw that was getting grilled by under testimony. Like this happened to her where she was... Basically, she was a Secret Service agent first, retired, left, worked for PepsiCo, private sector, head of their security, where she probably made significantly more money, by the way, guys. Then she got appointed as director and came back under Biden. And then obviously we had the whole fiasco that we had there. But no, I mean, that's very true. This is very common in the private sector. And then you mentioned, so I didn't even know this. So there's a distinction for if you pass a polygraph test. In the thing. Is that like a new thing?
It's not if you pass it. It's the level of polygraph that you've been exposed to. Because there's a polygraph for full scope, which means they go into your personal life.
Yep.
But then there's a polygraph for foreign intelligence affiliation.
Yes.
Which is more professionally focused, less personally focused.
Okay.
Right? Because if you have a full scope polygraph, you're like an open book to the federal government, right?
Yeah, they're asking you about drug use. They're asking you about foreign contacts, foreign allegiance.
Sexual behaviors, like for full scope, sexual behaviors, how many marriages you've had, whether you're in contact with your whatever, with your stepdad or with your former roommate's ex-girlfriend, like it's super personal.
Yeah.
Whereas your foreign...
It sucks. Yeah. I've done one before. It sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. And it's multiple days, strapped in a chair, and everything is under a fine-tooth comb. And you can't lie about any of it.
Yeah.
And even when you're honest, you're just so fucking uncomfortable that you still pop sensitive on multiple areas.
False reads are very common, man, on polygraphs. I mean, this is the reason why they're not admissible in court. And then there's obviously people that can beat it too.
Yeah.